Most of us grew up with Alice in Wonderland, a strange and fun story full of talking animals, crazy tea parties, and weird characters like the Mad Hatter and the Queen of Hearts. It seems like just a silly kid's book, right? But what if there's more going on beneath the surface? The story of Alice in Wonderland didn't start with a big plan to write a famous book. It all began on a boat ride in 1862. Charles Dodgson, better known by his pen name Lewis Carroll, was out rowing with a friend and three young girls, Lorina, Edith, and Alice Liddell. Alice Liddell was the daughter of Henry Liddell, a dean at Oxford University where Dodgson worked. Over time, the connection between the real Alice and the fictional one sparked curiosity. Dodgson later expanded the story and added more characters, turning it into the book we know today. It was published in 1865 and quickly became a hit. Dodgson was a math professor and loved puzzles and logic. Many of the strange things in Wonderland can be seen as jokes about the strict logic and rules of Victorian society. Dodgson didn't want his students or colleagues to know he wrote children's books, so he created a pen name by playing around with his real name in Latin and English. Lewis Carroll became the name behind the magic, while Charles Dodgson stayed the quiet, serious teacher. So while Alice in Wonderland might seem like pure nonsense, its roots come from a real person, a real friendship, and a sharp mind with a love for storytelling and logic. At first glance, Alice in Wonderland feels like a fun, silly story meant to entertain. But if you look a little deeper, there's a lot more going on. Lewis Carroll wasn't just telling a wild tale, he was hiding big ideas under all the nonsense. One of the biggest themes in the book is identity. All throughout Wonderland, Alice keeps changing. She grows huge, then shrinks tiny and constantly asks herself, "Who in the world am I?" This confusion reflects something we all go through, especially when growing up. It's about trying to figure out who you are in a world that doesn't always make sense. Another major theme is growing up. Wonderland is full of rules that don't work, adults who act like children, and situations that feel unfair or confusing. That's exactly how growing up can feel sometimes. The way Alice questions authority and stands up for herself mirrors how kids start becoming more independent and questioning the world around them. Some people believe Carroll was also using the story to mock the strict and proper society of Victorian England. The Queen of Hearts screaming, "Off with their heads!" for the smallest reasons could be a joke about how silly and harsh rules can be. The Mad Hatter's Tea Party, where time has stopped and no one makes sense, might be a jab at boring social events and strict schedules. Even the characters may have symbolic meanings. The White Rabbit, always in a hurry, could represent stress or pressure. The Cheshire Cat, who disappears and smiles mysteriously, might symbolize how hard it is to understand people's true intentions. The Caterpillar, who smokes a hookah and asks deep questions, might represent change or the unknown. And let's not forget Carroll's love for math and logic. Some of the strange events in the book, like the nonsensical courtroom scene or the bizarre riddles, can be seen as puzzles or math jokes. Carroll knew how to twist logic in clever ways, making fun of how adults often use rules to control or confuse. In the end, Alice in Wonderland works on two levels. It's a fun adventure through a crazy world, but it also reflects deeper ideas about growing up, society, and identity. That's part of why it's lasted so long. People of all ages can read it and find something new each time. For all the love and praise Lewis Carroll has gotten for Alice in Wonderland, there's also a side to his life that has made people uncomfortable. Over the years, many have looked into his personal life and found things that raise some serious questions, especially about his close relationships with young girls. One of those girls was Alice Liddell, the real-life inspiration for the story. Carroll spent a lot of time with Alice and her sisters, taking them on outings, telling them stories, and even photographing them. He took many photographs of young girls, sometimes dressed in costumes, and in some cases partially clothed. Adding to the mystery is the fact that parts of Carroll's diary are missing, pages that might have explained some of these relationships, including a sudden break in contact with the Liddell family. Biographers are split on how to interpret all this. Some say Carroll was a shy, socially awkward man who felt more comfortable around children than adults, but who never did anything inappropriate. Others think there may have been more to the story. It's important to remember that we're looking back through a modern lens at a very different time. Victorian society had strict rules about behavior, but it also had very different ideas about childhood, privacy, and art. Still, the controversy hasn't gone away. The mystery around his relationship with Alice Liddell and other young girls continues to fascinate and disturb readers today. It adds a layer of complexity to a story that's often seen as pure fantasy, and it forces us to think more carefully about the people behind the books we love. Alice in Wonderland isn't just a strange story, it might also be a peek into Lewis Carroll's own mind. Charles Dodgson, Carroll's real name, was known to be a very shy and private man. He had a strict routine, suffered from migraines and stammering, and often felt more at ease with children than adults. The way Alice constantly questions what's real and what's not might mirror how Carroll felt about his own identity. As a mathematician and a writer, he lived a kind of double life. Some experts even suggest that the story shows signs of anxiety or depression. For example, Alice often feels lost and frustrated, struggling to make sense of the world around her. There's also the idea that Wonderland lets Carroll express things he couldn't talk about openly. Victorian society was very strict, especially about emotions, mental health, and personal relationships. Of course, we can't know for sure what Carroll was thinking when he wrote the book, but it's clear that Alice in Wonderland wasn't just meant to entertain. It might have been his way of making sense of his world, his mind, and his struggles. That's part of what makes the story so powerful. Behind the silliness is something deeply human and honest. Alice in Wonderland has never really gone out of style. Since it was published in 1865, it's been reprinted countless times, turned into plays, animated movies, live-action films, and even inspired music and fashion. In the early days, most people saw it as just a clever children's book. But as time went on, scholars, artists, and even psychologists started digging deeper. They began to see Alice in Wonderland as more than just fun nonsense. Some viewed it as a look at growing up, others thought it was a critique of British society, and a few even said it was a kind of guide to understanding the human mind. In the 1960s and 70s, the book took on a whole new life during the counterculture movement. The strange visuals and trippy logic of Wonderland made it popular among people exploring psychedelic art and ideas. Some even claimed the book was about drug use, especially because of scenes like Alice eating mushrooms or drinking strange potions. There's no proof Carroll had any drug references in mind, but the story definitely fits the mood of that time. In today's world, people are still finding new ways to connect with the story. Some see it as a symbol of being different or feeling out of place. Others focus on Alice as a strong female character, someone who questions the world around her and stands her ground. The story has also been adapted to reflect modern issues like mental health, identity, and personal growth. At the same time, the controversy around Lewis Carroll's personal life continues to affect how some people view the book. While many still celebrate it as a masterpiece, others believe we should look at it with more awareness and ask tougher questions about its creator. Still, one thing is clear: Alice in Wonderland has left a mark on the world like few other stories. It keeps getting reimagined, discussed, and passed down through generations, because Wonderland, in all its weirdness, still feels strangely familiar. Alice in Wonderland might seem like a fun and random children's story, but once you look closer, it's packed with hidden meaning, real-life connections, and more mystery than most people realize. Behind the talking animals and crazy adventures is a real little girl, a complex author, and a world filled with questions about identity, growing up, and how we make sense of life. Lewis Carroll's personal life has sparked debate for decades, and while we may never know the full truth, it adds another layer to the story's strange and lasting charm. Whether you see Wonderland as a dream, a warning, or just a wild ride, it's clear that this story has stuck with us for a reason. Maybe that's the real magic of Alice in Wonderland. It speaks to something deep in all of us: curiosity, confusion, and the courage to keep going, even when the world doesn't make sense. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below.